All right, good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me in the back? All right, so good morning. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Bill Heitzman from the Cyber Battle Lab at Fort Gordon. I'll also be joined today by Mr. Harry Lubin from the Maneuver Battle Lab down at Fort Benning. So the topic of today's discussion is CyberQuest. So CyberQuest is one of the 4 Army Live prototyping assessment events in conjunction with AWE is another one of the 4, which is the Army Expeditionary Warfighter. So we've been talking both of those today. And so just to give everyone an idea of what CyberQuest is. So CyberQuest is the Army Futures Command prototyping experiment. It's set to align industry research to Army capability development. We explore industry innovations which inform the capability managers, the cross-functional teams, on viable technology solutions as we develop requirements documents. We also can identify mature technologies that are ready for acquisition, or even go into follow-on experimentation to further look into that. And so off to the left-hand side of the slide there, you'll see 3 blocks, the prototype assessment. So when we talk prototype assessment, this is a Army Live prototyping assessment event. And the idea of this is to get that prototype in the hands of the soldiers so we can see what is actually possible. We have ideas. The Army's decided we have a need for something. And so if we get these prototypes from industry in the hands of soldiers, we can actually start informing these requirement documents. And in some cases, if we identify something mature, it can be a quick turn to get fielded to the force. But we're really focused on the requirement documents. So the next block down there is the operational environment. So when we say operational environment, this is a combination of simulation as well as live forces. So in the past, we've used the BCT as the unit of action. As we've heard this morning, the division is the unit of action going forward, so we'll discuss that more later and the way forward for CyberQuest. But what we really want to do here is put these technologies, like I said, in the hands of soldiers in operationally relevant environments, doing missions that they would actually be doing. It's one thing to have a piece of kit that does something in a lab, but to put it in the hands of the soldier and accomplish that mission and provide value to that commander is the key here. So that's why we focus on the operational environment. And the next one is innovation. So, as a network engineer, I often find the Army says, hey, I need to do this thing on the network. Typically, I can say, I got 5 vendors tomorrow that can have an approved chest code on your desk for that thing right now. So it's just a matter of us linking up with the industry partners and merging that into something that the Army can use. And we call CyberQuest is a no fear of failure event. So what that means is when the vendor brings their kit into us and we test it out, if it fails, that's not a big deal to us. It's just CyberQuest. We can fix that. We can even have your engineer go back to the hotel that night, make the change, make it more valuable to the soldier. We can try it again the next day. So we know things aren't going to be right that first time. So that's why we call it the no fear of failure. So that in a nutshell is what CyberQuest is. So as I mentioned, we partner with AWE. All right. Okay. So for the first time in CyberQuest 21, we partnered with our friends down at Fort Benning in the Maneuver Battle Lab with the AWE event. So what we did there was we sent our EW and tactical radio technologies down to Fort Benning, where they focus more at the smaller level, the company level, platoon, squad level, because those EW technologies, those tactical radio things are really at that tactical edge that a soldier would have in his hands. So that's a really great fit for the guys down at Benning, and you'll hear from them later of how that provides great value to their exercise. At Fort Gordon, we had many of our networks and services and cyber technologies, which a lot of times are applications and the sort of things that would be in a talk. So, I probably failed to mention it, but the things that we look at the Cyber Battle Lab are networks and services, cyber, tactical radio, electronic warfare, and there's also the emerging information advantage that we're getting after. So that's how we set up CyberQuest 20, and CyberQuest 21 will be doing the same thing CyberQuest 20 and 22 will be doing the same thing. So we'll have Fort Gordon and Fort Benning operations. We'll link those with some port of transport, whether that's DRIN or a SATCOM, but that will be linked in some way so those EW and tactical radio can pass the data back to our talk location there at Fort Gordon. On the right-hand side, you'll see we have a lot of people involved in this. So when I mentioned operational force earlier, last year it was the 4th ID and the 1st AD who came. But additionally, we have a lot of PEO partners. We have different battle labs that come to support this, CDIDs, and also TATRIC, which is our telemedicine and advanced technical research center, which I'll go into more later what they do, but they're really looking at that virtual telehealth type stuff. So it also became a good partner for the TATRIC guys that come here and to utilize CyberQuest. So some of the highlights from CyberQuest 21. On the EW side, we were able to simulate both red and blue signals of interest. We could demonstrate we could record, manipulate, and play back these capabilities. And so what that really proves to us is that an EW platoon could remotely reproduce a unit's RF signature and use that either for obfuscation or just to influence the battle. And you'll hear about some of that more when we talk on the AWE side of how that actually played out down at AWE. On our ACOM tactical radio side, we looked at some LPI, LPD radios, so low probability of intersect and detect radios. So what we did is we demonstrated that we could have lightweight, survivable, and affordable intra-squad radios that were capable of operating in EMS congested environment. And what we did down there, because we had the EW guys down there at Fort Benning, we could actually provide some jamming effects to those radios, and we proved that in most cases those radios will still operate. So that was a big win for the TR side. On our ACOM NNS, our networks and services side, one of the things they looked at was using AI and machine learning to actually augment the network monitoring capabilities. So what this means is we can use less people, less time, and let the system kind of automated respond to whatever's going on in the network. So that was the big win for the network NNS side. On ACOM Cyber, we looked at a couple defensive cyber operation technologies to determine if they could emulate adversary techniques and procedures to enable threat-based testing of Army DCO systems, processes, and personnel. These systems were able to replicate known adversary post-breach activities against friendly systems. They could identify the friendly vulnerabilities in the endpoint network, and we could determine the effectiveness of the blue force configurations against those red activities. Then on the telehealth side, so the TATRIC guys, they were able to remotely provide medical direction and guidance to medics on the battlefield. So what that really allows is for them, potentially you could have a non-medical person in touch with the rear echelons back at either in the States or wherever that higher headquarters was, where the doctors were getting that guidance on how to treat that casualty. So those are just some high-level highlights from CQ21. There were a lot more things we looked at, but those were the high levels. And so going into the CyberQuest 22 and 23, and I list both of these because CyberQuest it's a year-long thing, and I heard one of the guys from Maneuver Battle Lab make the comment that AWE is really, you're doing three AWEs at once. The same goes for CyberQuest. You're usually writing up the reports and results from the first CyberQuest. You're in the middle of executing another CyberQuest, and you're planning for that third CyberQuest all simultaneously. So you'll see that on the timeline off the right-hand side. Today we're in the middle there. In August to September, we're doing vendor demonstrations for CyberQuest. So starting this week, going in through September, we have brought in multiple vendors to demonstrate their technologies. And just to give you some background on why we have vendor demonstrations, we start off with a white paper selection. The vendors provide white papers. We read that. If it's of interest, we bring them in for demonstration. And that's just, sometimes a white paper may say you can do something, but we want to validate that through a demonstration. So that's why we bring those in. So out of that vendor demonstration, we'll have a good idea of what's actually coming to CyberQuest. And then we'll go into our planning conferences. But you'll see, of interest to probably all the vendors in the room, probably around the December timeframe, assuming we get learning demands solidified, we will be publishing our broad agency announcement for CyberQuest 23. So that's when we expect that to go out to industry, asking you to help us out with various problems that we've identified with our Army capability managers. Going through into January and February, we'll begin integration for CyberQuest. That's where when all the selected vendors will come to Fort Gordon or Fort Benning, where they're selected to go, and we will begin integrating in the network, making sure everything is ready to go for the actual event in March. So beginning of March, we will actually execute CyberQuest from 7th to 23 March. We will have a Distinguished Visitors Day on the 25th of March. And following that, of course, we publish all the reports and those sort of things. But like I said, once we come out of that, we initially go into tech selection for CyberQuest 23. So as I said, it's a really never-ending process. You see on the left-hand side there, the scope for CyberQuest doesn't really change too much. We're still trying to look at relevant technologies, cyber, EW, information advantage, tactical radio, signal, et cetera. And we still want to demonstrate viable technologies that answer learning demands and capability documents for both the capability managers and the network cross-functional team. We plan to continue our partnership with AWE and sending our technologies down there. And I think the biggest piece, the biggest change out of all this you'll see is we really want to extend beyond the brigade focus. As you heard probably multiple times this morning in those opening comments, the unit of action is now the division. So with CyberQuest, we have to figure out how to go up to those division and even in some cases enterprise, because our ACOMs do have enterprise capabilities in their portfolio as well, while still maintaining those technologies that we have to look at the tactical edge. So that will be the one change you'll see going forward with CyberQuest as we move away from a brigade focus to more of a division and even higher echelon focus. The intent doesn't really change, but I go to the next slide, it'll break down. So as I mentioned, we have a white paper selection process. We started off with 71 submissions from the various vendors. We down selected that to about 33 we have chosen for demonstration, which will happen in the next few weeks. Additionally, the Marine Corps have decided they want to bring 2 technologies. Tatric will also be bringing whatever technologies they're working on. And both Army Cyber and the Network Cross-Functional Team are providing input to all these demonstrations, evaluations, et cetera. And we find that very valuable to have, especially Army Cyber, who is that operational force using this kit, having input to that. So having them here at Fort Gordon makes that much better. And that will, once again, lead to us integrating them into those division and higher concepts. So, I've been talking a lot, but I'm just going to leave up for a minute here all the focus areas that we are looking at for CQ22. So everyone can take a look at those between the network services, tactical radio, cyberspace, EW, and a change this year, the Intel Battle Lab is also coming down, so they're looking at various technologies. So that's another new thing for CyberQuest this year, is the Intel Battle Lab will be included. All right, so I want to turn it over to Mr. Harry Lubin next, and he will brief on the AWE portion, and then we're going to open this up to question. The intent here is really to have a large question and answer session as opposed to us talking all day. So, Harry?
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Again, my name's Harry Lubin. I run the live experimentation branch for the Maneuver Battle Lab at Fort Benning. Let me just see here. Oh, wrong way. Okay, slide. Okay, so what is the Army Expeditionary Warrior Experiment? We've been doing this for quite a few years now. It's the Army's experimentation campaign at the tactical level. We pretty much focus at company and below. We do have a battalion TAC that serves as an enabler, but the focus is really at the very tip of the spear. It's an annual exercise. It's spread over the course of about 5 months, and I'll get into the phases there in a minute. But our focus, much like much of the discussion this morning with the keynote speakers, was focused on multi-domain operations. Our piece of that is what they call cross-domain maneuver, which is the tactical part of MDO, okay? So a lot of what we do, and especially with the linkage to CyberQuest, is we're defining what exactly is the cyber domain at the company and below, because there hasn't been a whole lot of work done on that, and it's a discovery event every time we do it. We execute AEW in 3 phases. Live fire, which will begin in November, just what it sounds like. We do a lot of range work, new weapon sites, things like that. We will then evolve into a non-network excursions, things we don't necessarily have to hang a network on. A good example is water purification kits, things like that. And then we'll come about February, March timeframe, we'll start evolving into our force-on-force, which is basically squad sticks, platoon sticks lanes, and then culminating in a 72-hour company force-on-force. We are linked to Project Convergence. We are a feeder event for Project Convergence based on our recommendations, and the Joint Modernization Command sends a team to AEWE as well as CyberQuest to look at these events, to harvest potential candidates to participate in both Project Convergence and the Joint Warfighting Assessment that those folks put on every year. Our linkage with the Cyber Center goes back quite a ways. So it's a natural fit that we linked CyberQuest with AEWE. The Cyber Battle Lab has served as our lead technology integrator over a number of years. Basically, we don't necessarily have a standing tactical network at Fort Benning. So the Cyber Battle Lab gets the mission of taking whatever vendor capabilities that are participating that year, basically making a network out of it, and integrating sensors, UASs, things like that into that very network that they're designing. Increasing international participation and interest. So this year we'll have a platoon from the United Kingdom. We'll have a platoon from the Dutch Army, and then observers from the Australian Army next year. Australia will provide a reconnaissance section to participate also. SOCOM has a growing interest in this. We'll have a squad, either a squad or a platoon. They haven't decided yet, but the 75th Ranger Regiment is looking to actively participate in this too. We're adding a simulation wrap this year to help get at capabilities that we may not be able to execute in the field. And that will also, as we develop this over time, provide an echelon headquarters, as Colonel Heitzman was saying, back here to the folks at the Cyber Battle Lab executing CyberQuest. So we can partner the both venues through a hierarchy of command. And then, like I said, both our events are feeders for Project Convergence. But what we offer, as again, it's important to note that Colonel Heitzman highlighted, is a no-fail venue. So much like CyberQuest at Fort Benning, vendors come, they'll bring their kit. If it doesn't work, they take it back, they work on it, we'll get it right back out in the field. Direct interface with the soldiers who are using it. We'll provide a report at the end of it to each vendor that participates, highlighting the strengths and weaknesses of each of their kit. But the feedback from us that we get from the vendors every year is the one-on-one interface with the soldiers on improving their capability. So this is what we learned out of the partnership with CyberQuest last year. It seems whenever we bring cyber or CEMA capabilities to the tactical level, the impacts are profound. The first time they did it, we had it in front of our commanding general. 2 days later, it had such an impact on the fight. You see what capabilities they brought. The key is, and it really ties with the theme from the speakers this morning of operationalizing information advantage. What the CEMA capabilities allowed the tactical leaders to do is develop the situation out of contact, shape the battlefield at the tactical level, making the unit more lethal, more survivable as they go forward. It was baby steps really the first year, last year when we did it, and we look for more in-depth findings as we go forward and mature this relationship. But like I said, every time we introduce a new CEMA capability at the tactical level, it has significant impacts on the fight. And then finally, just to highlight, this is a snapshot of where we are for AOE 22. We've had 148 submissions, you can see up there. A dynamic battlefield, it seems, if history is right, we'll end up with about 50 to 60% of that when we come to execution for a variety of reasons. You see, 88 have been selected. We've recommended some for other ALPA venues where they're a better fit than maybe AWE or CyberQuest. And then as we go forward, a number of technologies will fall out based on readiness or corporate decisions. If you look at the proposed major themes, that was what our technology call was based on. And then to the right of that, you'll see the capability types that actually showed up. So that's what we're going to build AEW 22 around this coming year. And as we go forward, we'll be synchronizing our timeline with the folks at the Cyber Battle Lab here so that both the CyberQuest timeline and the AEW timeline will better marry up. We're talking about things like combined technology calls, or maybe it would be one call to industry. We'll link all our internal objectives so we can do both, and it would be a more integrated event with both events as we go forward. So, pending your, let me go back one thing. If you have any questions on AEW, you need to contact us. That's the website at the bottom. You can either contact us or work it through the Cyber Battle Lab. We work very closely together. So please feel free to contact us if you do have an interest. And Bill, I'll turn it back to you.
So do we have any questions? We got about 10 minutes here for questions. Or are we still brilliant?
Yes, Roger Moore, Bylight. Now that there's an association between what's going on at Benning and Fort Gordon, when you're doing data analytics maybe at Fort Gordon, can you get data feeds from Benning during the exercise?
Yeah, so the question was, can we get the data feeds from Fort Benning back to Fort Gordon? So the answer is yes. So what we've done last year was we utilized the DRIN to perform that link. We also have SATCOM capabilities inherent to the lab. So we will be able to pass that data back to Fort Gordon. Do we have any other questions? All right, I see no other questions. If you do have...
Actually, one, not necessarily for this one, but is there a look at towards the out year to do some funding of those in ministry that come? Because having done this a couple of times before when I had the rapid equipping force, it does become very expensive to industry to do multiple events, and especially with the OTAs that are ongoing. It's showing that, you know, the capability that I come and demonstrate will lead, or could lead possibly, to the shaping of the requirements and then eventually to the acquisition mechanism. But there has been, you know, this thing through time of all industry, you know, continue to provide funds, continue to fund. But then as we've seen with some of the OTA actions and acquisition actions, it doesn't necessarily come to fruition. So I don't know if there's anything in consideration for that for some of the out years.
All right, so if everyone could hear that, the question was about funding the vendors coming in. We asked the industry partners to come to lots of events. They have to fund themselves. So I'll first off say I'm not a money guy, so nothing I say is legally binding here. But I do not know of any effort to fund that. What I will say is we are really working hard between the ALPA events to start combining and better aligning with our JWAs, our MDOs, project converters, those sort of things. That way we're not asking you to come to Fort Benning, Fort Sill, Fort Gordon, and somewhere in the Pacific. So I will say we are working internally to fix that problem, but I do not know of any effort to fund you.
And again, like Bill, I can only talk to AEWE, but to be painfully honest with you, the answer is no. I mean, we try to be as efficient as possible. We understand the investment that's made by the vendors, providing your kit, maintaining your kit, safety releases, new equipment training, all that, we get it. But unfortunately, and just to be totally honest with you, up to this point, there's the intent for the Army is to continue fielding the venues, funding the venues, but there's no funding available to bring specific technologies in.
I believe Mr. Edson, my technical director, has some input.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Eddie Edson, technical director at the Cyber Battle Lab. To answer your question, I think what we're trying to say is that CyberQuest provides you an early opportunity because in many cases, there are technologies that industry brings to our event for CyberQuest, and they are recognized by things like the Rapid Capability Office. They then take that product based on our recommendations, and then they can take it to an advanced level. So advanced prototyping opportunities, and perhaps there's some funding that is exchanged from that point. So really, CyberQuest provides you that early insight, and we absolutely recognize the commitment and the cost associated with vendors to participate in our event. To that end, we make a concerted effort to provide operational feedback that's meaningful to you. So we take that very, very seriously, and we're very grateful for your participation, because we know there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of events you could participate in, but I will tell you that our event is very forgiving. It's a good way to get started. And then on top of that, in the long term, you're aligning the capability and the technology, most importantly, with the requirements. So if there's no requirement, it's just a good idea. And so that is the commitment that we're in as a return on your investment.
All right, do we have any other questions out there? All right, I see no other questions. I appreciate everyone coming and listening to me, and the Maneuver Battle Lab guys. So I appreciate everyone coming out, and everyone have a good day.
That schedule we had up there is pretty much solid for the meetings, the initial.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to push that initial